The Orange Zone, sponsored by Billy Whitaker Cars and Trucks.
All right, what's up? Welcome in to the award-winning Orange Zone podcast. I'm Tommy Sladak. We have Samantha Croston. We have Rachel Culver on the producer mic. A reminder, you can find every episode on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you want to listen. You can also find every episode on our Orange Zone YouTube page. What's up if you're watching from the Skycam? We remind you to like and subscribe as we are on our hunt to 1,000. And we are getting there inch by inch. So thank you for being on this journey with us. On today's episode, we are getting all into the close of this Syracuse women's basketball season. We have some updates on the men's side in terms of coaches. Is someone leaving? We got some lax talk at the end. But the big story right now, and it was probably our last basketball open for a while, Syracuse women's basketball falling to UConn in the second round of the NCAA women's tournament by a final score of 72-64. The Orange were 20.5-point dogs.
Unreal.
And they took them down to the final minute.
And it wasn't even just that they took them down to the final minute. I mean, they hung in there, and it was relatively close the entire game. I mean, I watched the whole thing, start to finish, and I was so excited the entire time thinking about the fact that they never felt out of it. It always felt like, I'm not going to say it necessarily always felt like, okay, they're going to win this, but it felt like there was a chance the entire way through. And against a team like UConn, I thought it was really impressive, and I thought that Coach Jack felt comfortable with their performance. Not that, of course she wasn't necessarily happy because I'm sure she would have wanted to win, but I felt like she thought it was a win nonetheless.
And she's the real deal. I think we're all comfortable in saying that at this point. But I actually had a part where at halftime, I was speaking with some of our coworkers here where we were saying, okay, maybe this is it. Maybe this is when things start to slip away because they were down 11. They scored however many points in a row. But that third quarter, UConn came out cold. And Syracuse just inch by inch found themselves getting back in the game. But there were still those spurts where all of a sudden there was 3 minutes left, 3.5 minutes left. It was a 10-point game. 10-point game. Dyaisha Fair did her thing. Georgia Woolley did her thing. And Sophie Burrows, those three stepped up huge.
It was just the three-headed monster. I mean, Burrows from three, like, that had me on my feet. Like, I was so excited just watching her. I'm like, this freshman is coming in here, and she is just nasty. And with Woolley, honestly, she would really, for Syracuse, be my player of the game, just because when Dyaisha Fair, at first, I first of all couldn't believe she scored 20 points by the end of all of it. Because
2 points in the first half.
Like, I was like, how did she get to 20?
Crazy.
It's insane. But she was cold in the first half, and Woolley was there. I mean, she was the reason why they were continuing to stay in that game. So, again, it made me realize that, we talk so much about Fair, and, of course, we are going to talk about her again today because she continues to break records, and she has all of these different accomplishments. But this is a team that is just really impressive even beyond just her, and also just makes you excited about the future, seeing some of these freshmen step up and seeing what this team could be in the future.
I'm going to bring Rachel in. Rach, what's up? Did you watch? What did you think? What are your immediate thoughts on that game?
Yeah, I watched. You go into halftime feeling a little nervous. I agree with what Sam's saying, where you never felt like it was totally out of reach, but you did start to feel like as you go into that halftime break, things could get ugly
Uneasy,
if we don't come out of this right. But they did come out of that right, and a lot of that also had to do with UConn not coming out of it right. But I mean, Paige Beckers is just a beast, man. She's a really good basketball player, and she had some really nice things to say about this team, specifically Dyaisha Fair. So I think while it's not the ending that Syracuse fans wanted to see, it caps off what was an amazing season and an amazing legacy for Dyaisha Fair in a way that you don't feel ashamed of by any means,
No, yeah, and honestly, there's a part of me that feels like this is the ending that Syracuse fans wanted to see. I mean, I almost felt like at this point, coming into this game, playing against UConn, it was like they were playing with house money. I really felt like they had accomplished not only the things that everybody expected and knew that they could, but and more. after the last game that they won in the first round. I really felt like at that point it was like, you know what, let's just keep on playing to win, seeing exactly what you can do. But considering the fact that last year they weren't even in the NCAA tournament and it's still so early in Coach Jack's time here, I really thought that they exceeded expectations any way that you look at it.
And this has all been within 2 years, like you mentioned.
2 years.
Like this program was at rock bottom in, what was it, 21, 22. Von Reed kind of stepping in as the interim after Quentin Hillsman and everything that went on with that program. But it wasn't just rough for basketball. The culture was at the absolute lowest. You just went through this thing where all these players, really were, say that they were miserable playing for that program. And so for Felicia Leggett-Jack to come back to her alma mater and take it to where they've gone. I mean, they had 20 wins in their first season, ended up going pretty far in the WNI team when there were really zero expectations. And then year 2, projected to finish, ninth in the ACC, and they have the season they have. And then beyond that, you make it to March Madness. You have an amazing performance by Dyaisha Fair just to sneak out of that first round, which was not an easy first round game. And then to get UConn in the second round, this was just brutal. And you say, I think it ended the way fans wanted. I think obviously people would have wanted to see them go farther.
Yeah.
But UConn in the second round and for Syracuse to be a 6 seed, it's the worst draw.
Yeah. Brutal.
And it's the lowest, that 3 seed for them is the lowest, I think, in I'm trying to remember what the graphic said, but it's been years since Gino Auriemma's team has been a 3 seed because the vibe, they're never not that 1 or 2 seed vibe. I think had Syracuse played Ohio State, had they played the 4 seed, even if they played USC, I still think UConn would have been that toughest game. And they handled it, man. And Felicia Leggett-Jack said in the pre-second round press conference, I want to pull up the exact quote because I don't want to misquote her because it really was something where she was speaking from the heart. And she knew right after it was a good bite. She actually celebrated, kind of gave a wink to the reporters being like, I know this is a good clip for you guys. She said, we're going to give it our best effort. Whatever that best effort is going to allow each one of us to go look in that mirror and say there was nothing left. She said it could have been a 40-point loss. It could have been a win by 10, but we need to make sure that we're giving it everything. And I think we saw that.
Yeah, that, first of all, is just an absolute heater, and it wouldn't be the first time. But I agree with you that it was just a rough draw. I mean, I see one of the bullets here says UConn will be going back to the Sweet 16 for the 30th time in the last 30
How's that possible?
NCAA tournaments.
It's as old as me.
That is
That's
nasty.
a dynasty, my friends. That's a dynasty.
That is just gnarly, Not
I thought
to
Rachel was
mention,
going to call me a dinosaur for a second.
I mean, they're playing there. I mean, that place was packed to the gills.
It was sold out.
It was sold out. It was an amazing crowd. But I just was imagining being in Dyaisha Fair's shoes. Not only are they booing her, etc., but when she went up to shoot the free throw and you could just see all the fans on the right side of the screen, waving everything, screaming. I'm like, yeah, that all matters, that makes things a little bit tougher. So yeah, I really felt like, they went in there and they did everything they could do. I do wish, of course, the same way everyone else does, that they would have won, especially because I know that now Huskies are facing Duke. I really would have loved to see that matchup.
Tour.
Yeah, I would have loved to see them go up against Duke. But you know what I mean? Next year is a different year, and we'll see what happens.
I think there would have been a deeper path for them if they got past this game. But
Right?
as the 30th straight Sweet 16, it really is. It's incredible. And Paige Becker's got it done. Shout out their freshman KK Arnold for stepping up and hitting that 3. But let's talk about Dyaisha Fair for a second. And then I want to get into your thoughts on the top 4 seeds getting the home games.
Wait, hold on. This is random off that, but I realized there was a reason why I was bringing up Duke, and now I remember what it is. It's because, have you guys ever seen that video, the Kara Lawson video where she does that whole speech about handle hard better?
No.
We'll have to watch it off of this because that speech changed my life. And they actually just did a Sports Center, an 8-minute thing about it, that speech and all the different people who it impacted. It was something that came out on Twitter, I want to say a few years ago. And it was just her giving a pregame speech. And I was such a big Kara Lawson fan ever since then. So that's why I brought it up. I was I would have loved to see, I feel like both of those coaches would have been giving just like it would have been soundbite mania the entire week leading up
nice.
to it.
Nice. Love that.
I'll show you guys it.
Out in Portland, which would have been cool. Would have loved that. But Dyaisha Fair, let's talk about it. Let's talk about this Syracuse legend. So Fair came in at 3,383 points. And she came in 10 points back from fourth place and 19 points back from third place. And to get to this point, right, we had been tracking her all year as she rose up the NCAA's all-time scoring list. And, I was constantly doing math of what she needed to average, how many games they would need in the ACC, how many games they would need in the NCAA in order for it to happen, for her, because the third spot was really realistically where she could land. She was not going to be able to catch Caitlin Clark, who's number one. And when they went out in the ACC first round or second or quarterfinals, whatever their first game was, I was like, okay, this is going to be really hard. But what ends up happening is over her last 6-7 games that she played in her career, she's averaging 25.7 points per game. She comes out and brings Syracuse back from the dead against Arizona to win it. 13 points, 13 straight points for Syracuse to end the game. In the same time frame, Arizona had 3. Great players show up in big moments. That happened there. The next step is, can you do it again? And can you do it against a powerhouse program, the most winningest program in history, at their home court? First half, 2 points was cold. But as she said in the postgame, shooters shoot, and shooters never stop shooting. Second half, all she needed was one to go in. I believe it was a fast break, and it was probably an easier bucket down low. I think it was maybe even a pass opportunity.
And she still shot the 3.
Still shot the 3. Watched it go in. That's all she needed.
I know.
She takes off from there. And so just to watch her be a part of not just staying in this game, but then to just keep an eye on it. There's fourth place, and then to hit that free throw to get 20. It's amazing.
They don't call her fourth quarter Fair for no reason. No, she did. She always, and that I have to say, like, there are a lot of things about her that really impress me. But that is not an easy place to be in. Going into halftime, having scored only 2 points, you know how much your team needs you. You know how much is on the line and at stake. And to her credit, she did continue to shoot. And they did not all go in. But as you said, you know that Fair is the kind of person that once she could just get into that rhythm, like 1, even 2 shots go in, she's fine. Now she's going to be able to be on a run. She's going to be great. But I think it was impressive to see the transformation that she made from the first half to the second half. And again, it's just like, that's just storybook. Like, you just couldn't have written a better script that she hits 20 points and she's only 19 points away from third place. So I'm proud of her. She cemented her legacy in Syracuse women's basketball history and honestly just in the sport.
And her story is great, right? Rougher upbringing in Rochester. Makes it through, gets to UB, connects with Felicia Leggett-Jack, and has 5 years of hoops where she's 3 at Buffalo, comes over with her to Syracuse, and ultimately stays for that 5th year. And she had a soundbite, that post-game press conference. I was tearing up. It was emotional. It was emotional hearing all of them, especially talking about Dyaisha, where she said, she goes, I had no idea that coming back this year would be the best year of my career. And if she left last year, right, she would be, oh man, Dyaisha Fair, I wish we had more time with her. That's what the message would be, right? Now it's the question of, is that jersey going into the rafters?
Yep.
And that's a question I want to present to you guys, because it's been an interesting conversation on social media today of whether that number 2 jersey is going up there. And it's mostly because of people saying, there's only one NCAA tournament game in her 2 years. She was only here for 2 years, yada, yada. I want to hear your thoughts. I have a very firm opinion on mine.
Yeah, I mean, I would say yes. And the reason why, in part, is because I understand the critics who are saying that she was only here for 2 years. But I think this is also something that will be interesting going forward, because this is something I've been talking to fans about as well, just as I've been doing news stories on this. With NIL deals and the transfer portal, you're not going to really see as many people hanging around for 4 years in general. I think that's an interesting transition that you're going to see. How many jerseys will be going up into the rafters, period, at all, because there's going to be so much transformation. So I think that's something that with the way that college athletics is going and where it's headed, it's almost like you need to think in your mind, is that going to be something that derails me from putting a jersey in the rafters? Is the person wasn't here the whole time? Because if not, there's just going to be a lot less jerseys. For me, that's not a good enough reason to not put it there. She was here for not the majority of her career, but 2 years. And she was here at a time when the program was at arguably one of its lowest points ever. She brought it to arguably one of its highest points ever, and she did it with FLJ in her first 2 years. So to me, all of that is enough history where I think she has cemented her legacy. I would have no problem at all with it going up into the rafters.
How about you, Culver?
Yeah, kind of speaking off of Sam in that point, I think you do see the arguments that 2 years necessarily wouldn't solidify someone as an individual who deserves that name in the rafters. Also, to add on to that, I think you will also hear people that she's like inarguably the third most scorer in women's college basketball. That's a point that can't be argued.
It's a fact, folks.
But you will hear people make the argument, well, she did it in 5 years. So I think that even though that it's true, I think there would not necessarily be pushback, but I think a lot of it depends on where this program goes in the next 10 years. If we see this program like explode into like something that this success is continuous for the next couple of years and into the next couple of seasons, I think you can easily tie back a lot of that success and a lot of that culture to what Dyaisha Fair was able to do in her first 2 years. It's all about the people that lay the foundation. So because of that, in addition to the fact that she is inarguably the third most scoring player in all of Division I women's basketball, regardless of how many years it took her, I would say that she does deserve that spot in the rafters.
Yeah, like if anything, to me, the stronger argument for no, it shouldn't be there would maybe be just the tournament resume. But to say, 2 years, I mean, Melo was here for 1 year. That jersey's hanging in the rafters.
He won a championship.
And that's what what I'm saying. I know people are going, well, he definitely had a better tournament resume. So I'm saying that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like I would understand that, especially if, I don't know if this is kind of what you were getting at, Rachel, but I was like kind of listening to you, and what I was sort of thinking about is, it's sort of like you almost would, and you can't do this, but I would almost like to see 10 years in time in the future. Like, how amazing does this program become? You never know, like, how many other people are going to be rafter worthy. And I guess that's why it's
true.
a tough question to figure out.
I'm with both of you guys. I say yes. And I say the story of Felicia Leggett-Jack's first 2 years is not this story without Dyaisha Fair.
Yep.
I think Dyaisha Fair's story is not without Felicia Leggett-Jack. I think what they've created together. And I can never fault someone for not being at the school to start, especially, and I don't know this for certain, but my guess is with Dyaisha going to Buffalo that she maybe didn't have an offer from Syracuse, right? Because end of the day, she was looked down upon, quite literally, as being an undersized 5'5" guard. Can she hang with the big dogs of D1 women's basketball? And the answer is not only can she hang, but she's the biggest of dogs on that court. And so for her to come over with, Felicia Leggett-Jack, come to Syracuse and immediately make her mark. And that's what I can't stress enough is the low feeling around this program. People during that down year were so bothered by it and hurt by it that it was hard for some people to find themselves supporting that program when they weren't happy with the leadership and who was the head coach. So for her to come in and do what she's done in the 2 years, to take a team that had no business getting to 20 wins, get to 20 wins, and then make a run in the WNIT, and then before this season, didn't say the goal was to reach the NCAA tournament. It is, we are reaching the NCAA tournament. I remember that interview. And then she goes and she cements her name. And Syracuse, as we see on this paper here, they've lost 27 games in a row to the Huskies. You look at the last few, right? They're blowouts. Gino Auriemma has destroyed Syracuse in his career. And this is the closest they've been in a very long time. Not to mention, this program's only ever been to the Sweet 16 once. And that was in 2016 on the road to the national championship where they lost to UConn. So they were this close from getting somewhere that only one team in program history has gone before, and that's all happening in 2 years from a new head coach and her star point guard.
Strong foundations.
Yeah, strong points.
Put number 2 up there.
Put it up.
Put it up. Okay.
We'll have to see when would they make that decision.
I don't know.
Years in the
It's I
future.
think years in the future. Yeah, I think there's some other people that they want to be putting in there first. But in terms of next year, and Felicia Legachek was asked about this after the game, who steps up? And she goes, you see the other player that was up here with her, Georgia Woolley? She was up here for a reason. That's her team now.
Ooh.
And we saw that leadership from Georgia in that game, especially the way she came out. And I'm excited.
It
Excited
is
for this
her team now. That is such a great soundbite. But honestly, I mean Burrows too, Latham, like that.
Burrows, that was big too. And sorry to cut you off,
Go ahead.
but it came into my mind there. We had really high expectations for her in the beginning of the season. Her and Alyssa Latham kind of made that first immediate impression, and Alyssa ended up going on and having that all ACC freshman team, and Burrows went quiet. And FLJ said that in practice she was someone that was draining it, but then when she got out there during the games, it was like, nerves set in. And so for her to come out getting that starting spot because Elena Rice couldn't play, right, because she was hurt, and to step up in that moment, in that environment, and score a career high on 6 threes, that is so promising. And there's a lot to be excited about for next year.
Also, poor Elena Rice. I felt so bad when they kept showing her with the sunglasses on in the hood, man. I'm hoping that she feels
I'm no
better.
medical expert, but when people do that, it's because they've gone through some head stuff.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
And what got hurt, and the sunglasses, and so hoping the best for her. Tough one.
I was happy. I was very proud to even see her in there, because I was thinking if that really is some kind of a head situation.
She was probably so light sensitive.
I mean,
Oh my
it certainly couldn't
God.
help to be in that environment, man.
And she probably refused to not be there.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. Yeah, totally.
Which says something. It really does. Any final thoughts on women's basketball before we get into one men's note and then lacrosse? Hit me with it.
I think one thing we should definitely talk about, and you brought this up earlier, Tommy, was the home games for the top 4 seeds. And kind of the impact of that. For me, I actually had this conversation with one of our directors here at the station earlier. I think this is just a thing that has come along with women's basketball not getting the attention that it deserves for years and years and years. So in the future, in the next few years, I would easily foresee this being something that has changed and everything going to neutral sites. I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing, but I think it skews things. I think if you want the true, authentic March Madness experience that has been cultivated in the men's side, I feel like the same thing should exist for the women's side, and that includes neutral courts everywhere you go.
And just to refresh people's memories, the top 4 seeds in each region in the women's tournament gets to host that first and second round if they make it to the second round. So in this case, Syracuse didn't get a top 4. UConn's number 3, so they're in Storrs, Connecticut for the first and second round, and it gives a massive advantage to the best teams in the tournament, right? And there's people that sometimes complain about the women's tournament being chalk, there's rarely ever upsets, and those top 4 seeds almost always move on, which is true. And it's partially because they're playing on their home court. And I understand it from the business perspective, right? Is, the women's game in years past, not even close to as strong as the men's side. You put neutral site games for the round of 64 and you run into fear of there just not being a lot of seats sold and not making a lot of money. We're at the point now, and I think that's what Rachel was alluding to, where if this game's in Pittsburgh, there's going to be a ton of UConn fans there. There's going to be a ton of Syracuse fans there. If it's down in Charlotte, you're going to see orange. You're going to see blue. You're going to see Huskies. You're going to see orange. Is there still going to be certain games that I think are low attendance? Yes. But they're at the point where I believe they are ready. And if they want to make this tournament, you're right, have those bigger moments, you got to push it to a neutral site. Because I can't help but think if this was at a neutral site.
I mean, I felt like, Rachel, you said it perfectly when you said the true, authentic March Madness experience. That's what makes March Madness so fun. And that is what would, making a decision like that, and I understand there's a business component to it, but making a decision like that helps to grow women's March Madness even more. Because that's what people want to see. That's why people say that this is one of the most exciting sporting experiences of the entire year is because there are so many upsets and because you have to expect the unexpected. That's why people want to fill out brackets, because you just never know what's going to happen until you play the game. And I think that women's basketball has earned it. They've earned that right. And I truly think that women's basketball in some ways is one of the fastest growing sports right now. And they were showing even graphs of that last night. Did you see that graph? That was an amazing graph. Just showing, I mean, just the millions and millions more people that are watching than years past. And it's been a rapid growth. So yeah, I'm a 100% advocate for getting rid of the home games for the top 4 seeds. I think it's just too big of an advantage. It's very difficult to overcome that.
Big time. Okay, you guys ready to move on?
Yep.
Want to talk a little lax? Let's talk lax.
Talk a little lax.
Because it's a great time for Syracuse lacrosse.
Woo!
It is a great time for Syracuse lacrosse, and I'm not just talking about the women's program, which has been kind of our mantra in the last few years. It's the men's side too. And let's start with the men, because I think, is anyone surprised the SU women are top 5 right now?
No.
Not really. They're playing amazing lacrosse. The men's side, some people in the beginning of the year might have said yes compared to how the last 2 years have gone. They are on a heater. They have moved up from 6th in the country to 3 in the country, and they had one of their best wins in recent memory last week. They beat Hobart in a Central New York battle down in Geneva over the weekend, 13-7. Not too surprised by that, but you never know. The Kraus Simmons Trophy game is always a good one. It was that Duke win, 10-4. Defense, Will Mark, unbelievable.
He was on a heater. And honestly, you say like some people would be surprised in the beginning of the year. I think most people would be surprised. Maybe not all. I'm sure there are some people who follow Syracuse closely enough to know that they were brewing something up. But I was surprised, to be totally honest with you. I always knew that Syracuse had the offensive juice. They had that creativity. They had all of the big household names, the Spallina and the Hilts and on and on. But 2 big things changed this year, right? You have Cone at the face-off, which is a massive, massive difference. And he's someone who has really helped to kind of weigh things out and even the scales for Syracuse. And then you have Will Mark, which you did have last year. But I just feel like this year he's stepping up bigger. And maybe contrary to some other people's opinions, I don't actually think that last year he was significantly worse. I think the defense was significally worse. I think their defensive unit as a whole, as a collective, is better this year. Because you have to think, men's lacrosse is a game where always, Will Mark is going to be seeing 30-plus shots a game pretty much. But I do feel like there's a difference between defenses who are really closing in, who are really pushing people to the outside, who are really forcing low-angle shots, versus him just seeing shot after shot on the doorstep. Like, there's only so many of those that he could save. And anytime I watched last year, that's how I felt. Like, it struck me how close the shots were and how open sometimes the person was who was taking the shot. This year, not so much.
No, and it's spread out, right? The wealth is spread. On offense, it's just there's always seems to be new names really getting in the mix. I think it was Trey Deer over the weekend knocked in 2, along with your kind of classic names. But it's just I've seen so many players step up. But it's that defense. It's Will Mark, and they're clicking right now. And 4 games left. The schedule is very tough. By the way, they are 9-3 right? No, 9-2.
That's insane.
8 was the most in Gary Gates' 3 years. First year was 4-10. Last year was 8-7. So this is already the best record in the Gate era. Their only 2 losses were to Maryland, still a good team, and then Army, who just got bumped out of the number 1 spot this week in the Inside Lacrosse rankings. So their only 2 losses are in overtime. Think about that. This team is 1 goal away, 1 little moment, 1 little call, Army game, away from being an undefeated team.
Overtime has not been kind to Syracuse lacrosse.
No, because the women have it's been bad. And it's only going to get tougher. And this weekend is really going to be a statement game because it's in South Bend. They're taking on number 1 Notre Dame.
Ooh.
After that, it is Cornell down in Ithaca, at North Carolina.
Oh, man.
And then finishing up at home against Lars Tiffany in Virginia.
Ooh,
so
baby.
That's how they finish up. And then on the women's side, the women are ranked 5th right now, if I'm not mistaken, and they moved up from 7. So the women have yeah, they've been. Hold on, I'm on the men's, I'm on the women's. Here we go. Now we're cooking with gas. They've been on a real hitter. I mean, the win over North Carolina, the 20-5 win. We haven't gotten a chance to talk about that, I don't think. What did you think of the way that?
I mean, that was just like that was a head scratcher. Like that truly just had me here like, huh? Like, did somebody mess up the graphic? Like, I don't even understand how things possibly could have gotten so out of hand. I mean, like UNC is a legit team. So to blow them out, it makes me reconsider things, you know? It makes me wonder, because I will say that in some of the games earlier in the year, like the overtime loss to Maryland, it does sort of make me think, are we on the track here that's sort of a similar track to last year? They're kind of in that top 5 conversation and mix the whole year, but come the end of the year, there are going to be teams that are better than them.
Northwestern.
But Northwestern was the better team. But this year, now I'm not so sure, you know? Like I see them blow out UNC 20-5, and I think like maybe there's more that they can do that we just haven't seen in every single game. I think that Syracuse has played great in a lot of games, but I don't know that they have played consistently to the highest level that they can play at if they can beat UNC 20-5. So yeah, for me, it made me reconsider what the ceiling might be. And we'll just have to see. They have Louisville coming up this Saturday. I'm on the call, so tune in.
Hey, they also have Loyola tomorrow night. So we're taping this Tuesday one. By the time you're listening. Yeah. So yeah, Loyola's number 7, and then Louisville, and then they just beat Virginia, which was nice. But yeah, this season's winding down too. Cornell, Pitt, Clemson. Okay, they have more games left than I thought.
Yeah, and those games all winnable. But Loyola, to me, that is a real test. I mean, I was even excited. Brutal. Like I even was excited to watch Loyola go up against Navy, because that's always an exciting game in the Patriot League, and it really wasn't as exciting as I would have thought, because Loyola is just that good. So I think, you know, playing against Loyola, Wednesday night showdown, that's the kind of thing where let's really see exactly where this team stands. It's just going to be another kind of check to see, okay, what can this team offer? Because Loyola, I'm telling you, is no joke. It's going to be a tough game.
Rachel, final thoughts in general?
In general, did we want to touch on GMAC at all, or any of those things going on?
Yes. So that's an interesting one. Jerry McNamara has been the top name swirling for the Siena job over the last few days. Multiple reports, Albany Times Union, the NBC station out there as well. We'll see where that goes, because there's been rumors of something getting finalized, nothing for certain, but we do know that Jerry McNamara is going to be a head coach at some point. It's just a matter of when. He's been at Syracuse for more than 10 years now. He's put in his time. He moved up to associate head coach when Adrian Autry got bumped up to head coach. It's just a matter of when he wants to do that. So we'll see if that's this year. And it's one of those where I think fans just, no one is kind of like, people I've spoken with aren't, they're not up in arms about it.
No.
They knew that this day was eventually going to come. And whether that's this year or next year or whenever, I think everyone's just content with it and understanding.
It is funny that you say that, though, because I do feel like this fan base is so passionate that sometimes the initial response,
normally it's,
you're not sure exactly what you're gonna get. But this is like one of those rare times where the collective,
really rare.
It really is rare. The collective fan base was like, "Love this guy, wishing him well.
Yeah.
Good luck to you." What? Then that's how you know this is a guy that's really respected around here, and somebody who everybody really truly wants the best for, because they know that he's put in his time here. And you're right, it was always a matter of when.
Mm-hmm.
So we will just continue the same sentiment that the fan base had and say good luck, wishing him well.
Yeah, we'll see if it happens.
We'll see.
We'll see what goes on. We'll update you next week. All right, that's it. We missing anything? We good? We golden?
Done, and done.
Awesome. Sounds good. I'm Tommy Sladak, Samantha Croston, Rachel Culver on the producer, Mike. That's our show, the Orange Zone Podcast. Make sure you like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube, if you're listening, wherever. Thank you for being a part of this journey. Basketball season coming to a close.
Get us to 1K, baby.
Get us to 1K, and we are getting into lax. But yeah, we are going to have a banger of a celebration when we get to 1,000. There's going to be balloons. We're going to have cake.
Are we?
Party hats. I've just decided right now.
This is news to me,
Yeah.
everybody who's listening. So
yeah, I'm throwing a kegger.
All
Just
right.
kidding.
All
Not
right.
doing that.
Prove
Apple
it.
cider.
We'll see you at 1,000.
Yeah. See you guys. Peace.
Bye.